Imagine an app that brings your sports betting group chat to life, an app that can link to your sports book so you can easily share your bets with a simple click while following the game through a live chat right in the banner that makes it feel like you're at the stadium. Does this sound too good to be true? Well, not anymore. Chalkboard has turned sports betting into a complete group experience. Compete against your friends for the top spot on the leaderboard and share your winning bets in the message board. Be the expert with Chalkboard. Download today through the App Store and be sure to join the Odds Honest Truth board on there. That's, of course, our new sports betting show. You can get free money each and every week. And we're doing a fun extra thing with Chalkboard. If you put a comment, ITM whiskey, in the chat, you will be eligible to win a special bottle of our whiskey, not available for purchase. You can donate to the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. Well, now you can win one through the Chalkboard app. Go to the App Store, download the Chalkboard app today, and make sure that you join the Odds Honest Truth board on there. You will not regret it. This is a great new way to augment your sports betting. Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players podcast. This is our show we're recording it on Thursday, December 2nd, talking about the races of Saturday, December 4th. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatal. Not that far from the Brooklyn Bunker as the crow flies. I don't know, 15 miles maybe? I'm in New Jersey. I'm at the SBC conference, being on a panel today talking about content as marketing, something that maybe I know something about. I don't know. They thought I did. I came to New Jersey, getting to see a bunch of friends from all over the sports betting world and having fun while we're at it, heading down to Gulfstream Park tonight to cover some races. You'll hear about that in an ad I dropped in a little bit later in the show. But we've got terrific coverage for you today. Woodbine, Gulfstream, of course, the big day at Aqueduct and also Japan Racing Association, and we're going to get to it right after this. It's time to talk about Santa Anita's Ship and Win program going on right now. The Santa Anita Ship and Win program offers $5,000 cash bonuses for owners that ship to Santa Anita from outside of California. Plus, Santa Anita will offer a 35% purse bonus to your horse's earnings in its initial race at the Great Race Place. Terms and conditions do apply, so make sure you give a call to Chris Mertz, the racing secretary at Santa Anita, at 626-574-6472. That's 626-574-6472. And mention the Ship and Win bonus. First up on the show today, very happy to bring back a very popular guest. Had a lot of fun chatting with him recently and excited to get him on for the last really big stakes card in New York this year. He is the legendary horse player, journalist, Steven Crist. How are things?
Hey, things are good, Pete. Thank you.
How has your horseplay been going? I remember at one point you used to taper a little bit from Breeders' Cup until things kicked on at Santa Anita, or was this day at Aqueduct always an exception to that?
No, this day always was. I'm very fond of this lineup of races. I've always been a big fan of the Remsen as a predictor of what we can look for when these horses stretch out next year. And the Cigar Mile's a terrific race. I'm a big fan of one-turn miles, and between the Met and the Cigar, kind of bookending the quality part of the New York season, it's always a big race. I also really like that the Saturday card at Aqueduct ends with the 4 graded stakes. They didn't throw a 16-horse maiden claimer in there. People always think, you have to have big fields at the ends of these cards. It's really nice just to have 4 high-quality, compact field stakes races in a row to end the Saturday card.
Very horse player friendly for sure. And, while we are dealing with maiden races in the first 2, at least between the double Will Pays and the win pool for race number 5, we can get a little bit of a line on how people are betting. That, I think, is a horse player friendly change as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. At first my heart kind of sank when I saw we had 2 two-year-old maiden grass races preceding those 4 stakes. Fortunately, there aren't, many blind firsters you have to worry about. I mean, obviously there's a Chad Brown firster in the first leg and a $425,000 Todd Pletcher firster in the second leg. But, there aren't a ton of firsters. It's not one of those things where you go, oh, God, I have 9 horses open to win the race. I think it's manageable.
Let's kick off by talking about it. Race number 5, we've got the 2-year-old maiden fillies going 1 mile and a 16th on the turf. Steve, which numbers do you want to include to get this pick 6 started off?
Well, I think you probably need to go 4 or 5 deep. But what I would say is that the ones who have run in here have already run pretty close to par for this race. I think there's some quality here, and the one horse I would lean to, if I had to make a selection, would be Rosebug from Bill Mott. Comes out of a neck loss to Caironi, who went on and ran well in 2 stakes after that, got the top figure in the field, and Rosebug would be my selection. We haven't seen morning lines yet, but I'm assuming he'll be something like the 2-1, 5-2 morning line favorite. But Mott has another horse in the race, Hard Place, who ran a good second in his debut. You've got that Chad Brown firster I mentioned. Those are always dangerous. And one horse who you might skip by because he ran a low figure in her debut is Etheric from Michael Dickinson. Now, I realize she's coming out of a maiden race at Laurel, and she got a figure of 48 that isn't going to be competitive with a race that figures to be one in the high 60s. But this filly really ran the last part of that race. I mean, she was dead last at the top of the stretch, ran by 10 horses, and may have some quality. So she'll be on my ticket as well as the 2 Motts and the Chad Brown.
An interesting array of horses there. I'm very similar. Rosebug, I did make the top pick, run well enough twice, and I did like how she was just staying on after attending what appeared to be a faster than par pace in the manner of a runner that should continue to improve with distance. One that you didn't mention, who I'll throw a mention out for, is the 1 Wallachia. Just 3 points light of the Beyer par, despite finishing well back in the field on debut. And this is a Graham Motion runner, and I expect his to keep improving second time up. I did also think, and it might be nothing to this, the game of jockey musical chairs, but that Jose Ortiz ended up here rather than on the 5 Hard Place. I thought Wallachia was one that I wanted to use. It could maybe sneak away at least a middling price, as opposed to being completely buried in the markets. Hard Place, who I mentioned and you mentioned, another I'd want to include. And then the 4th one, the other obvious one, you mentioned as well, the 3, Market Segmentation. I don't have any special knowledge about this horse, but just based on Connections pedigree and what she cost, one to include. I wasn't going to particularly grade them out. I was just going to try to play 6, 1, 5, and 3 and see if I could get away with that, reserving the right to maybe spin one of them or throw something in, depending on what we see in the paddock and on the tote board in this race. And I'm certainly going to take your point about number 2 as well. Do you make Wallachia a contender in this race?
Yeah, I think the figure on her debut race might be a little bit high. So I'm a little leery of betting her off that 66, and she took no money whatsoever in her debut. But, she ran okay and she could stretch out. It's just, you've got a couple of very solid horses here who have already been the mile and a 16th and proved that that's what they want to do.
Talked about the runners in the first leg of the pick 6 who'd having run close to par. Not as much the case in race number 6, where we've got the 2-year-old maiden colts going 6 furlongs on the turf. I did want to use the 6 Urban Forest, though. That was, of the races I saw from this field, that was the one that I liked the best, especially considering that he didn't break well in a turf sprint, putting himself kind of behind the 8 ball, and still ran on decently well. Feels like one for whom a forward move could be coming. Fiery Heart, number 1, Steve, reminded me of an angle I think I first learned about sitting on the side of the stage at Ciro's all those years ago with you and Harvey Pack and Andy Serling and the crew. You look at a horse that was purchased at a 2-year-old in training sale at a giant multiple of the sire's stud fee, in this case, a $475,000 baby off of Outworks 15K. That likely means this horse has some speed. Now, it obviously wasn't the plan to buy out of that sale and wait till November at Aqueduct, but still, in a race where I don't love the established form, this is one that I wanted to keep on side. And then the other one I wanted to mention was the 8 You Can't Whip It, going out for the first time as a gelding and adding blinkers. This runner caught money for the summer debut out of town. Appears to be working well for the return to the races. I was hoping would be a bit of a price. We'll get more of a clue about that from that double probable pool from race 5 into race 6. But I was looking at 618 in a race where I think you probably can get more creative than that if you want. How did you see it?
Yeah, I couldn't really get too creative in here because there are just a whole lot of horses who have shown absolutely no ability in their races. As a group, this one, as opposed to the previous race where you had several who have already run close to par for the race, I mean, nobody in this field is near the 76 par for 2-year-old maidens in December going 6 furlongs on the grass. So I think that makes this especially ripe for a first-time starter. I agree with everything you said about Fiery Heart. He's going to have to go from the rail, but there's not much quality speed in here. Urban Forest is probably the right one of the ones who have run. You have 5 horses coming out of the same November 13th maiden race here, and there's Carpe's Dream, who was forward and held on for second, by a nose over Urban Forest, but Urban Forest had a much tougher trip and is likely to reverse that result today. But, the other firsters in here and the ones who have run several times, there's not much in here.
Were you just going to try to get out 1-6, or did you have any other numbers to mention?
I'll use some others as C's, but I think 1-6 are my 2 A's in this race.
Well, I'm going to write up some notes on it, so if you want to just rattle off the C numbers you were interested in, we could do that.
Well, the ones who I haven't thrown out completely would be the 3, the 5, the 10, and 11.
Right,
so, those will be my wacky C's, but if one of them wins, I'm going to have to be pretty right everywhere else.
Let's talk about race number 7. The graded stakes action begins with the grade 3 Gopher Wand, 3-and-up fillies and mares going a mile. Steve, who did you like in here?
I think that last year's winner, Sharp Star, is very much the right horse. She really looked like her career was over. I mean, she was terrific last winter. When she won the Gopher Wand here, she ran a couple of very big numbers, and then her form just went completely the wrong way. But I'll tell you, the race that she ran last time out, winning the Empire Distaff, I think she's 100% back. She ran like a wild horse that day. She was really good. And she seems to have gained a new dimension of being able to rally from off the pace. I'm wary of getting too excited over one race on a sloppy track, but she just looked to me like she's back. The interesting thing I thought about this Gopher Wand is that, other than Sharp Star, there is no established form at 1 mile in here. In Lady Rocket and Bella Vita, you have 6.5 to 7 furlong kind of horses trying to push it additional distance, and I'm not really sure that they're going to be capable of getting that 8th furlong. Other than Sharp Star, my second pick in here would be Miss Marissa, who is probably better going a little farther, 1 1/8, but at least we know she's going to get the mile distance in here.
7-1 on the A line for you in the Gopher Wand?
Yeah, and the 2 sprinters I referred to, Lady Rocket and Bella Vita, I mean, I'll use them as C's. They're both good, and their fastest races are good enough to be competitive. But as I say, there's a reason that they've made a combined 25 career starts and haven't gone a mile on the dirt. It's probably longer than what they want.
It makes sense. I couldn't resist putting Lady Rocket on top based on the trip I see her getting. Maybe I'm also being a little bit of a homer for our friends at 10 Strike Racing and their partner, Frank Fletcher. I just feel like she's gotten very good late in her 4-year-old year. I think will be the best of speed. And on pedigree, I think you can argue that the mile will be within reach. But, you make an excellent point about the number of starts that she's had to this point. Sharp Star wasn't the other one for me as well. Won the race last year, as you mentioned. Looked completely cooked earlier in the year and then bounced back so big. Definitely one to keep on side. But yeah, I had a little bit of trouble trusting, if only because of the sloppy track and how she'd looked previously. The only other one I'll mention, much more of a backup for me, So Darn Hot, who I thought if Sharp Star reverts to running more up on the pace and this pace ends up collapsing, I thought So Darn Hot in some scenarios might be able to benefit if that's the expected pace scenario. I'll have a little bit of So Darn Hot, mostly going to try to get out with the 2 and the 7, and I am going to take a longer look at Miss Marissa based on the good shout that you gave her and your excellent point about the established form at a mile in this year's Go for Wand. Let's talk about race number 8. You mentioned being a big fan of it. Steve, the Remsen, these 2-year-olds going a mile and an eighth. I really like the one Mo Donegal in this spot. Ran very well second up in a race that's produced decent form. All 4 to come back to the races have improved their Beyer speed figures at least 11 points, including that big winner it was 2 weeks ago now, Life is Great. I also like the fact that Mo was wide and closing on a day where it looked to me that you wanted to be forward and inside. I had kind of a strong fancy for Mo Donegal in this spot, with respect also for the number 7, Zandon, who I thought impressed on debut after hitting the gate at the start. And given the usual amount of improvement for a Chad Brown runner between starts 1 and 2, I can certainly see the case that this one can contend. The only thing giving me a little bit of pause about Zandon is that while the field has produced one next out winner, in aggregate, that field has seen significant figure regression in the subsequent starts. So Mo Donegal's more of an A+ for me, and Zandon more of a B. And I think that's mainly how I'm going to try to get out of this year's Remsen. How do you see it, Steve?
Yeah, well, I think we've both managed to smoke out the 2 favorites in this race, but I do think they're the right horses. I agree with everything you said about Mo Donegal, but I like Zandon equally, if not more. Chad Brown was quoted after the race or before this one as saying that he really didn't expect Zandon to win first time out going 6 furlongs, and that may account for a pretty big 5-1 odds on a winning, Chad Brown firster. But he said that he always thought this was a distance horse. He was a little surprised he was able to win first time out going 6. So he's always thought of him as a long distance horse. And while usually it's a be wary kind of jump to go from 6 furlongs to a mile and an eighth in your second start, they think this is a distance horse and a quality horse, and I agree with them on both counts. I think either he or Mo Donegal is supposed to win the race. Woohoo, that's me, who's technically top figure off his last race on that showcase day. I think that some of those numbers are a little bit high. I think you could, drop them 5 or 6 points and see if you still like the horses. But, to my mind, Woohoo, that's me, improved so much off his previous races on the slop race that I'm going to ask him to do it again on a fast track before I think he can compete with these kind of horses.
Makes perfect sense to me. I do think there's a chance Woohoo, that's me, could get a really nice trip, but the leap up on the slop and as much as I like the other 2, if he appears on a ticket, it'll be only as the deepest of backups, and I think I'm probably too spready in the first 2 legs to even include. So we're definitely singing from the same hymn book in the Remsen. Let's see what happens in the Demoiselle with the 2-year-old fillies tackling the mile and an eighth. Steve, who's your idea of the winner?
Well, I'm sorry to be a master of the obvious, but again here, I thought that the 2 horses who were probably going to be favored were the right 2 horses, those being Magic Circle and Nest, coming out of a 2-3 finish behind Gerrymander and the Tempted. They both ran very well in that spot. They earned solid figures in the low 80s that no one else in this field can really touch, and I just thought they were the right 2 horses here.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I thought Nest, for me, really caught the eye between the 2, not breaking well, trying to close into that even pace. just looks to me like one who's surely got more in the locker. And I really think that the added ground is going to play to her favor, given the abundant stamina in her pedigree. I popped Venti Valentine in there as my second pick. I've been very impressed visually. The thing that gives me pause about her, and I'm assuming this might be why you didn't come down on her at all, is that there seems to be a lot of disagreement with figure makers about how fast the runs have been. I mean, on the time form figures, like just too slow. But I don't know what she's done on the eye. I still think I want to try to squeeze her in there on some tickets. And then Magic Circle makes all the sense in the world. I mean, has the top pick on the form book and definitely could get the run of the race this time around from on or near the lead, especially because I think the other horse on pace figures that's supposed to be forward, Full Count Felicia, I'm just guessing on pedigree, probably can't even stand up on the dirt. I think they're just taking a little shot there. So I'm going to try to play 5, 3, and 7 fairly equally. What were your thoughts on Venti Valentine?
Well, it's interesting. All 4 of these graded stakes that we're talking about have a horse coming out of a win on New York Bred Showcase Day, October 30th, with a big victory in the slop. I mean, you got Sharp Star in the Gopher Wand and Woohoo, That's Me in the Remsen. Here we've got Venti Valentine, and in the Cigar Mile itself, we have American Revolution. Now, I think you need to ask yourself if those figs for those 4 winners that day are 5 points too high. Do you still like them or not? In the case of an American Revolution, even if his 108 is really a 102 or a 103, he's still very competitive in the Cigar Mile. But if Venti Valentine's 75 is really a 70, she's just not going to be able to run with Nest and Magic Circle. So, I do think that sloppy track on Showcase Day produced some larger numbers than maybe what they should be. But in, a couple of the cases like Sharp Star and American Revolution, I don't care if those figures are high. The horses have still done enough other things to be competitive. But Woohoo, That's Me, and Venti Valentine, I don't think they're as good as the Open Company favorites in those 2 races.
It's a great point and a perfect segue to the Cigar Mile, which obviously is our featured race of the day. Very, very excited about it. It's an interesting race with a bunch of different intersecting form lines. Have you tipped your hand with your comment on American Revolution? What numbers will be on your tickets as we try to close out this pick 6 and figure out how we're going to get paid?
I would love to have 8 numbers on my ticket by the time I got to this race, if everything broke perfectly, because this is really a tough race. I mean, it's a terrific race to discuss and debate and handicap and play. But, you have at least 7 horses who are capable of running a figure in the sort of 101 to 105 range. And they've all done it. They all can do it. And I would be shocked if anyone wins this race in a blowout. I mean, I think that these horses are going to finish fairly close together. American Revolution, who I mentioned, I think is a very cool horse. And he's got a lot of talent. And he may still have some ceiling. And I don't care if his 108 should really be a 102. He's still competitive. But if I had to make a selection in this race, I would take a shot with Code of Honor. Code of Honor is the only Grade 1 winner in this field. He's a Travers and Jockey Club Gold Cup winner. But if you go through his career races, I've always thought a 1-turn mile might be his best game, even though he's got a couple of Grade 1 wins at 1 1/4 miles. He's a real 1-turn closing miler. I think you're going to have solid pace in here. And I expect him to wake up, and I think you'll get a decent price on whoever you like in here because it is such a competitive field.
In terms of numbers to write down for you, 4 and 3 sound like A's.
That's right.
And in terms of basically as many as you can afford as backups, is that
it really is almost? I mean, I'm a little skeptical of the 2 bottom horses, Olympiad and Pipeline. I mean, Pipeline has done nothing to make me think he's a graded stakes horse yet. Olympiad, I know the Mott Barn has always loved, and they thought he was, their best 2-year-old last year. But he was a little life and death to win a 7 furlong one, other than last time at Keeneland, and I think it's a huge jump. So, if I had to cross out two horses, I'd cross out Olympiad and Pipeline. But this is a well-matched field.
It really is an interesting race. And now, the more we talk about it, I'm regretting my top pick just because I think it's probably the likely favorite, which I don't necessarily want in a race where 7 can win. But following C, I just think he looks like a really strong candidate for this. A runner who's gotten very good late in the 3-year-old year. And I felt like that BC run might even be a little bit better than it looked because of the part of the race where he made the move, which I thought was the fastest part of the race. I think against this group, following C could trip out really nicely. Obviously, you respect him, but is the price what's giving you pause about making him more of an A?
No, honestly, I'm not convinced that he really wants to go much more than 6.5 furlongs. I mean, the only time he's run more than 7 furlongs, he was beaten 18 lengths. I mean, okay, albeit in the Haskell. But, his Vosburg, he got loose in pretty soft fractions. Nobody really ran that day behind him. And the way that the Breeders' Cup Sprint completely fell apart late, the fact that he was close and gaining ground doesn't thrill me. So far with this horse, he's a little slow and he's a little iffy at the distance. So I'd love to have him as one of 6 horses if I got that far, but he's really not one of my top 3 in the race.
The other one I am very interested in that you didn't mention, the 5 Independence Hall. Yes, I think he could find the mile a little bit sharp. I was hoping for a change of tactics to more of a hold-up run this time around. We know he loves it around Aqueduct, and he's got good figures and form. What are your thoughts on him?
I still remember well his Nashua 2 years ago where, he came off a decent but not spectacular maiden victory. And he won that race with a triple-digit Beyer speed figure as a 2-year-old. Now, he's never really gone forward off that, and I don't want to get too excited about his Fayette, which was run on a very sloppy track that he loved and others didn't. He's been a little bit of a disappointment. He's never really kind of lived up to what he showed in that Nashua. But again, he's capable of running fast enough to win this race.
I wonder what they're going to do tactically. Do you agree that maybe an off-the-pace move would suit him best? I'm a little bit worried about a horse that's been on modest paces going farther, trying to run in the middle part of the race with an independent with a following C.
No, that will be tough, but I don't think they're going to try to send him. He doesn't have the kind of natural speed as especially a horse like Ginobili. Who can really, if you send him, he can really go.
I was going to include Olympiad as well, and this is just, the old school Mott with a target type angle that we've talked about on various podcasts, and I felt like on the pedigree, especially on the dam side, looked like one eligible to get the mile, improving late season 3-year-old who's maybe able to peak on the day. I will say about Olympiad, if this one ends up, less than 5-1, I certainly wouldn't be touching in the win market. But I was hoping this is a horse that in the picks could be 6 or 8-1. What are your thoughts on what price this runner will be?
I think more like 8-1 than 5-1. There's so many ways to go in this race, and I don't think that he looks stronger than 4 or 5 other horses. So I think he's going to be something like the 4th or 5th choice.
Yeah. At that, I wouldn't mind having that number on my tickets it's just one of those old school pet trainer angles, Mott with a target, But on numbers, I definitely see why you were leaning against even potentially in the tickets where you spread. It's going to be fun to see how it all plays out, Steve. It's been fantastic having you on and getting your insight on these races, and look forward to hopefully bothering you again soon because, no good deed goes unpunished around here.
All right. Feel free.
Cheers. Steven Crist with his thoughts on the Pick 6 at Aqueduct on Saturday.
Very pleased to announce our partnership with Gulfstream Park. We're going to be doing audio podcast every Saturday and Sunday. Me and Double D, Darren DeLucia, and then a rotating cast of guests. Going to be a lot of fun. Some days we're doing Fridays as well for the big weekends, including opening day this Friday, December 3rd. This weekend, we're going to be recording day of. So we'll be recording about 10. Pods will drop around 10:30. You can check them out there. Of course, In the Money Plus listeners will also be able to get little digests of the picks given out on the show. Hopefully that'll be helpful as well. But just be on the lookout for our Gulfstream Park Players podcast all through the Gulfstream Park Championship meet. Next up on the show, very happy to be joined by two people I'm very pleased to call friends. Both of them are part of the Gulfstream Park simulcast feed. You'll be seeing them a lot over the course of the next several months. From Gulfstream, Ashley Mailloux and Brian Nadeau. Ashley, how are things?
I'm good. I'm glad to be back in warm weather that doesn't involve snow. I spent some time back in Buffalo. I got back yesterday and it was 80. When I left, I think it was about 30. So it's been a big climate change.
That's a trade for the better, and one that I know our other guest, Brian Nadeau, can relate to after spending a few summers up, a few in quotes, up north near Saratoga Springs. How are you enjoying the sunshine, buddy?
Yeah, loving it, PTF. It's good to be back and see you, and looking forward to the championship meet. Getting things started. Had a good summer down here. We had a lot of fun in Saratoga too. But we're really looking forward to it down here. We're the screws are tightening now. We're ready to roll.
People are always saying to me, you travel all these places, traveling horses around, you get to do all this fun stuff. But Brian, I think it's you they should be envying. Last year in New Orleans and now in South Florida for the winter. That's better than the Brooklyn Bunker and Saratoga, I got to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, I picked it pretty right, and I'm looking forward to this winter, especially because it got a little cold in New Orleans last winter. So, and now I'm out of home, so I can't wait to get it started on that championship meet.
And Ashley, it looked like you truly were enjoying the fruits, as it were, of Western New York. You getting into the buffalo wings and whatnot. What is your favorite Western New York delicacy?
It's the chicken wings by far. There's a spot. It's outside of Buffalo. It's in East Aurora. That's the original location, the Barbill Tavern. I guarantee you, if you go there, they're the best wings. They have honey butter barbecue, and I can eat a couple wings, but when I go there, I can almost finish a single, and I'm sort of proud of that.
You should be. You definitely should be. We are so pumped to be working with Gulfstream this meet that we're going to have plenty of Gulfstream coverage on this late week show that people are watching or listening to now. But every Saturday, Sunday, and then for the biggest weeks, also on Friday, I'm going to be part of this new Gulfstream Park Players podcast that I'm doing with Darren DeLucia and a cast of thousands, Double D, as we call him, a real racetrack character. Had the pleasure of working with him up in Saratoga, and we enjoyed it so much we decided to pitch this to Gulfstream, and the powers that be, for whatever reason, said yes. So going to be more Gulfstream coverage than ever on the network, and very happy to kick it off with you guys. Typically on those shows, we're going to be doing a deeper dive into the late pick five from a wagering point of view. We're also going to be giving out various spot plays. On this show, I thought we'll talk about the big two races on Claiming Crown Day, the final two, but I also wanted to get a sense of what other opportunities on the card you guys were excited about. Brian, let's start with you. Any particular horses or races you're interested in betting on this Saturday card?
You're going to see a lot of horses on this card, as we know, that have been claimed for this card. And Passion Plus in the sixth race is probably going to be a big number. I know Pete hasn't done the morning line yet, but Passion Plus is a horse I'm somewhat interested in. The Tapeta form of late hasn't been good, but Elizabeth Dole's pretty high percentage trainer, claims this long, goes back to the turf, has some turf races that play with this group, Pete, drawn inside. There seems to be plenty of speed in this race, too. In the sixth, that is, and at a big number, I should say. I'm going to fool around with this horse in the exotics, and then one more I like that. I cover Monmouth in the Meadowlands in the summer, at least doing trip notes and stuff. And Belgrano in race 8 really got good this summer and went long and short, and is another horse with a lot of foundation under him, and there's a lot of speed in the 8th. Belgrano is a horse I'm going to definitely key on late in the exotics.
All right, so that's Passion Plus, who I believe is the 3 in race number 6, and Belgrano, who I think is the 7 in race number 8 for Brian. Ashley, do you have a thought on either of those races that Brian mentioned?
I'm going to kill the already probably short price on Belgrano. I love Belgrano as well in race 8. I think it's one of my favorite stats, and the reason I remember it all the time now is a bad beat at Laurel Park during the first charity challenge. There was a price horse at Laurel that won one of the races trained by Frank Russo, who's 50% in turf sprints. I just know the number it's ridiculous.
I'm told that's good.
Yeah, so now I remember because I learned the hard way. But I just really am impressed with the 7-year-old and his last 2 races, especially. I thought they were really nice. One at Monmouth off the layoff, then the one at Laurel Park. So I'm all in there. The only other race I kind of want to mention, besides I know we're going to talk about the late double, is race 9, the Claiming Crown Rapid Transit Starter, 7 furlongs on the main track. I thought this was a hard race to handicap because, being at Gulfstream Park for almost a year now, you start to see a lot of these horses all the time, especially the 2 big names being miles ahead and then the other one being well-defined. And I'm a huge well-defined fan. I just wonder, he had a really hot streak for a while. I wonder if he's kind of taken a step back from that because I think his last 2, he's fallen flat. One of which was at 7 furlongs, the other at a mile. I can maybe excuse one of those efforts, but not the 7/8 because he just loves the distance. He's 4 for 9. So hopefully he gets back on track. But the horse that I'm probably most interested in that race is Financial System, who Safi Joseph Jr. did claim 2 starts back for 10,000. Bumped up last time, raced at the mile, and just missed in the end with an 88 buyer, beaten by a neck. Typically, he's forwardly placed. He's shown, though, that he can rate a little bit more. If anyone's going to win with this horse, probably second off the claim. I think Safi's got a nice horse here. He's raced really well at Gulfstream. And the only other thing I'll mention, I know the horse didn't perform well last time out, but the winner of his most recent race, Manor House, just raced in New York, didn't perform well. I believe it was in the Discovery. It was a pretty big performance from that runner as well. So I'm going to go with Financial System, who's the 3 horse in race 9.
All right, good stuff. Let's talk about this late double, which begins in race number 10 at 4:32 Eastern. We've got a 1 1/8 dirt contest here in this starter stakes on Claiming Crown Day with 125,000 in the pot. Ashley, we'll keep it with you. Who do you like in here?
My favorite horse, one of my favorite horses at Gulfstream's in here, who I don't know if can win. I'm a big fan of the number 4, Tune In, who's just been really impressive. 5 for 8 at Gulfstream. Comes in here off a nice win. I liked that they took a chance 2 starts back and sent this horse to Churchill and still finished second in that race behind Major Fed, who's a nice horse. And the big thing with Tune In, it doesn't matter if it's a fast main track or it's the slot. He's shown that he can race on either surface, and it looks like we'll be sunny here. But the big thing, too, he's versatile enough to close from off of it or be part of that pace scenario. I just think the horse to his inside, Safi's horse, might just be a little bit tougher. So for me, I'm going to play exotics here. I'm going to use the 3 and the 4 on top. But for me, in order, it's 3, 4, 5.
Gerolamo's Attack, definitely one that makes sense, and I think Tune In's going to get a nice trip in that spot. And then I like the idea of the 5 Glory of Florida, appropriate name for the day, to be maybe hold up tactics and making a run on late in a race where it does seem like there could be plenty of speed. Brian, how do you see this one?
Yeah, you mentioned it, Pete, the speed, right? I mean, even if you look at this entire card, there is a lot of speed in a lot of these races. And this one is even more so because we're going 9 furlongs on the main track, and not one horse in here has won at this trip, and not a lot of them even tried this trip. So things could get a little funky in the lane, and I don't know how far Glory of Florida wants to run, but theoretically he's supposed to trip out pretty nicely in here. I thought he ran very well last time behind Girolamo's Attack. I actually made the morning line that day, and I had Fearless at odds on, and they sent it in on Girolamo's Attack, and he ran good, and he caught Fearless at the right time. Fearless, as you know, as Ashley knows, is a legitimate graded stakes horse for Todd Pletcher. So Girolamo's Attack is in raging form, but man, he is going to have to do it the hard way today, stretching out from a 1-turn 8 to a 2-turn 9. And I think Glory of Florida might fall through the cracks a little bit. We haven't seen the morning line, but you're allowed to expect 10 to 1 on a horse like this. He's dialed in out of a Mizzen-Mass mare. That's stretching the rubber band a little thin. I know Dialed In did win the Florida Derby at this trip, but I don't think anyone really confused him for a top-notch distance horse. But, from a flow perspective, Pete, I like this horse a little bit. It's a spread race for you. The other thing is I don't trust anybody getting that extra furlong in here, and we could have a lot of stragglers late. So I'll try one that's at least been willing to pick up the pieces and pass horses in the lane going short or going 1 turn.
who would be some of the other numbers in your spread, Brian, or is it really all about the 5 for you and then treating them as fairly equal?
I mentioned that the trainers that are claiming horses, and Mike Maker, has the blueprint for this. He's done it for years, and he's got Hanalei Houdini, and Paco's here. Now, this is, as Ashley knows, and I know you do too, that this is an awful post. You can't make up how bad a post this is for him. But he's got a stalking gear too. So I would think he's a major player in here from the flow. If Paco can somehow save a little ground into that quick run, very quick run into the first turn, I think he hits hard too. Certainly Girolamo's attack, I would not want to be without him. He probably is an AP. He's probably the best of the speed. And it's racing in the 21st century. Sometimes there's 5 speeds. One of them go, 4 of them take back. And here's the best horse in the race, loose and lonely on the lead, and they'll never catch him. So I think you have to use him too.
All right, good stuff there. Let's move on to race number 11th. We go to the turf for this one, another one of these starter stakes, 1.16 miles. Brian, who is going to close out this card as the winner on Gulfstream Saturday?
Yeah, where does the dart land, right? I don't know. I mean, Mike Maker twice has reclaimed attentive, and I love the reclaim. That's a huge positive. And here's another race where I think, there's enough speed in here to set up a stalker, to set up a closer, especially because some of the speed might be to the outside. And Mike's got more than one in here. And Chantel Sutherland, there's a time, too, that Ashley and I worked together a lot this summer where a lot of jockeys, Chantel is right at the top of the list, really did a lot of good work this summer. And now maybe with more national barns and riders coming into the fray, they might fall through the cracks a little bit. Chantel had a great summer. She's been riding in really, really good form. And attentive to me is very, very noteworthy. I mean, Linda Rice, dips this horse in for 40. She's not down here in the winter. Mike Maker sees it, bang, claims this one right off the bat. And I think attentive from a ground-saving post with some tactical speed just off of the speed is going to be a real, real big threat in here.
Looks like the best closer, looking at closing sectionals as well in another race, as you said, like so many of them on Saturday, seems to have plenty of opportunities to be the speed. Ashley, is it as simple as attentive in the nightcap, or you have another thought for us?
I don't think it's as simple. I mean, I like a tentative, and I have like a short list here of 3 or 4 runners that I'm tossing around in terms of like a ticket structure with the late pick 4. But I think a tentative, 2 for 9 on the year, has a good record coming out of those races at New York. My only concern is at 1.16 miles, or sometimes in those last couple, there's been work needed to do, or this one's rallying. But, we've also talked about there's a lot of pace in these races. So when I look at others in here, I think Max KO is worth a look. Finished second last time out, was beaten by a neck, but that was the first time back since going to Kentucky Downs and running a really big performance, a career best performance. I mean, this horse is 9 for 30 in terms of when ends his career. And he's a type, he can be forwardly placed. And last time out, I think on the Tavita, that was the move with him. And I don't know, looking at him, if that's what he liked more. I don't think so. I think he's more of a turf horse. I know there's similar surfaces, but I think for him, getting back onto the turf is key. And then looking at his run style, he's going to be just off the pace is how I see this playing out. And that's been a very good spot for him to be 2 and 3 starts back. Some others though to mention, and we talked about the speed in here. Midday Image in terms of a pace scenario looks to be part of that pace scenario and has the inside draw, also has Paco. So to me, Midday Image is going to have some sort of control early on in this race, or at least be part of it. And this is a horse that's 3 for 4 on the Gulfstream Park turf, 2 for 2 at this distance, and in those last 2 has been going longer. So I like this horse going to 1.16 miles, but you can look at other horses in here. They've tried similar things. I gave a look to Clear Vision, and then just those monster buyers, those last 2. This was a horse that was going longer just about a year ago, very long. Distances I can't even run physically, like 1.5 miles and 2 miles. And they cut this horse back, and it's been better. My concern with that would be, yes, the buyers are great, and the margin of victory is beautiful. But when you look at those half, even the opening quarter, they're pedestrian-like. Here at 1.16 miles, I don't think you're going to have that on the turf. So I don't know where he's going to end up in this race. So for me, I like Attentive. I also like Max KO. That's probably my top pick in here. And then I still think Midday Image on the inside can stick around for a piece.
8, 3, 1, and 4. I wrote down. Does that sound about right?
That's 8, 3, and 1. I mentioned the 4, but I've talked myself off the 4.
Okay, we'll leave the 4 out. I do like your ability to get the 1.5 miles, though. If push comes to shove, I think we could get you in off the goalpost with that one.
Yeah, I think you're supposed to, like, in high school, run like 8-minute miles. I don't think I can run 1.5 miles in 12 minutes, but save that.
Nadeau and I have no chance at all at that number. So we're going to give you the edge. A long odds on in the race between the three of us trying to run an 8-minute mile.
I feel like this is a future little segment, isn't it? We're gonna all run together and record it.
It could be a good little video. I mean, hell, I went up in a hot air balloon. I can certainly try to run an 8-minute mile.
Didn't you run a marathon for Pete's sakes, or half?
I did, but very, very. I run very, very slowly. My split times. When I was younger, I could run an 8-minute mile, but in the last very many years, like an 11-minute mile is fast for me in my I'm on the senior circuit now, Brian. You know how it is.
I will never forget several summers ago in Saratoga, for whatever reason, I was crossing over Lake Ave, and you were like in a absolute hot tizzy at like 9 a.m. running, and I was like, "Oh my God, the apocalypse is upon us!" At like 9 a.m, and I'm like, "Oh my God, it's all coming to me."
The best Saratoga running story was a couple of years ago when Jonathan and I went for a couple of runs together. We were planning it as like a charity thing for TRF we were going to do. But I mean, I was huffing and puffing. It was one of those hot Saratoga mornings, but poor Kinchin had to be vanned off. It was not pretty. And he's got the years on me too. So I felt pretty smug after that. All right, enough nonsense. I'm going to be in Florida tonight. I'm going to see both of you over the weekend. We will make plans to do that offline here, but really appreciate your time today, Ashley and Brian.
Yes,
sir. Looking forward to seeing you.
Adelphi is a racing club of like-minded people who enjoy horse racing and the camaraderie of being part of something bigger than themselves. Adelphi offers an interactive ownership experience with real-time access to other partners, trainers, bloodstock advisors, and other members of the team, as well as frequent multimedia updates on their horses, including some extra coverage from us over here at the In the Money Media team, as well as premium on-track and off-track hospitality experiences. Adelphi has an exciting class of yearling prospects available now, including Salivo, Street Sense Filly, named after one of our favorite restaurants, heading to Ray Handel, and also a yet-to-be-named Taprit colt going to Christophe Clement in the spring. Join the club. You can learn more at adelphiracing.com. Reach out directly to Matt at adelphiracing.com, or you can follow on social via Instagram at Adelphi_racing or on Twitter at Adelphi Club. To learn more, go to adelphiracing.com. Next up on the show, our final Woodbine Saturday segment of 2021. Can't believe I'm saying that. We got off to a late start with Woodbine, but boy, they've been continuing apace since they came online, and I'll be sad to see them go, frankly. Don't know if you got to see any of it live last weekend, Drew, but I thought racing on Sunday, briefly threatened by what appeared to be a blizzard. They got the racing in. It's been a good season, but sort of a metaphor for the Woodbine season this year. And hopefully looking forward to working with them some more in 2022. You've been doing a great job all year long covering Woodbine racing. Reflect on the season for me for a minute before we get into these last few races on Saturday. I should say before I let you answer that, though, we will be back with the show for Sunday, too.
Yes. No, I think this year has been fantastic for us. What a year it's been with the fits and starts. And I think, we like to handicap, and one of my things is overcoming adversity is a real big characteristic in handicapping. And what a good analogy for what Woodbine has done throughout this entire 2021 season. So I'm excited to see Boardroom back from L&J Foxwoods and some other memorable runners from the Woodbine season. And today we even have another L&J Foxwood that debuted very well a couple of weeks ago and is back here in race 8 on Saturday's card that I'm excited about. So I can't wait for next year to roll around. It does get sad when you start to see the whiteout-ish conditions start to fall and you're nervous that the cards are going to get canceled, but it also means the end of the season's near. So knock on wood, we don't get closing day whiteout where we can't bet horses like British Royalty coming on closing day, which was a horse that I was trying to bet on closing day, but unfortunately got scratched due to the whiteout conditions. So what a year it's been, and how it's just crazy to even be saying those words right there. So what a fun time.
Let's go to the race you just mentioned, Drew, race number 8. Normally on these shows, we cover the late pick 4, but I haven't fully done the 8th yet, but very curious to get your thought on this one.
Yeah, I think it should go get mentioned here. We talked about this horse last week or 2 weeks ago. I think it's been coming up more and more just from the impressive debut figure that this horse had run in the mid-90s. There may be some say there was a bias going on there, but even with a bias, I mean, how many does that move that point up? Maybe 5 buyer point figures. Like I just don't see the bias being the dependent variable here. I think Striker actually has some good abilities, and I'm excited to watch. I won't be betting because I imagine this one's going to get smashed down from even money or lower. So second time starter, you kind of sometimes it's best to be a little patient in this. How would you approach this one with the flashy first time buyer figure and what looks to be a promising start in the wagering markets?
I think Striker's also going to get a really good trip. So I could definitely see doing some pick 5 combos where I'm just Striker cold on the front. And then, we talk the horses we're about to talk about in the pick 4 and just do that for a smaller percentage of the play and just come back and then play the late pick 4 and or the doubles that we like best through the rest of the card. I don't have any problem with what Striker showed on debut, though, and with the handiness that this one has of getting stuck in a little bit. Just one data point, but it is interesting on the Equinedge morning line, Striker at 2-1, which is a price I'd be pretty excited for. But I do tend to agree with you that I think that number may wind up coming in, and it may be better to watch than wager. As always, we'll let the market be our guide, but I think Striker looks pretty tough in the 8th at Woodbine. Shall we move on to the pick 4? You have any other thoughts on this one?
Nope.
All right, let's do it. Race number 9. We've got stakes action here for the Ontario Breds. The Steady Growth going 1 mile and a 16th on the synthetic with 100,000 in the pot. Kick us off, Drew. Who do you like?
Yeah, I love number 1 Artie Storman here, and I wove a story for myself because I was looking at a few others, and the last 2 starts have just been impressive. We'll just put that out there because this horse had to stalk the hot pace, even though we do see that the favorite in here, Secret Reserve, was on the lead in that hot pace. I'm using kind of parenthetically for those who are listening, air quotes on the hot pace. But really, everyone was near that pace within like 1 or 2 lengths. And Artie Storm was able to overcome that adversity by getting out into the 2 path and still being able to finish by Secret Reserve. So I really like that angle. And then if you go 2 back, had completely different tactics in the Lake Ontario than the Lake Ontario, Instead sat well off the pace and just launched this massive 5-wide move. I think this one could really get up into the 90 buyers. And the value line for me sits at like 2-1 on the morning line of 5-2. I think that's great value here. So the number 1 Artie Storm, and then quickly the 11 Time Skip. I think this runner has run into some tough competition and finally gets to face maybe an easier bunch if Artie Storm and Secret Reserve take it to each other early on. The trip sets up well for those 2 inside speeds to go and this one to stalk. And I just think you look through the PP, Sir Winston, Special Forces, some other notable horses. If things collapse, maybe Time Skip can get up at what looks to be a good price at 10-1 in the morning line.
I looked at Time Skip for a long time and ultimately couldn't really figure out what the excuse was for the last race and decided to keep it simple. I went with your top pick as well. Artie Storm, very simple case, just well drawn, looks to have some of the best closing sectionals on offer, and the 2 Secret Reserve looked like the best speed. I was going to try to do the best speed and the best closer and hope that race number 9 at Woodbine on Saturday was as simple as 1 and 2. I wrote you down with the 1 as an A and the 11 as a B. Does that sound about right?
That's right, sir.
All right, let's talk about our other stake on Saturday, the La Proveillante, going 1 mile and a 16th on the synth. We've got the fillies and mares being featured in this one, a field of 10 going postward. I like November Fog, real eye catcher last time, running very well despite trouble, flying home late. I like her chance to reverse form with the 2 that beat her there and was going to hopefully get a little bit of value because of with people trying to play all three of them, etc. I was going to try to get away with just using November Fog in race number 10 as kind of a strong fancy. Drew, how do you see it?
Yeah, I think the question is, are we going to see another Pink Lloyd send-off for Summer Sunday, who is going to become a broodmare, I believe, for the Connections. So a storied year and a storied career, winning over half of the starts this one has entered. So congrats to the Connections there on a successful campaign. And I think the conversation starts with that runner. I know we typically don't talk about knocks on horses, but is the clear speed in this race. But I think the Connections aren't going to take any chances and just send this one off in good regard, as it were. So I'm going to be off of the favorite Summer Sunday. And I'm actually going for a price here with the number 8 Silent Causeway. Has a bit of that fuzzy form, but the start 4 back is that building block for me with the 4-year-old to trend in the right direction. And on paper, it looks like this horse is excelling going long in 2 turns. So we'll see if that kind of holds up for us. And that workout tab looks as sharp as ever as also. So my next pick on top of that, I will say, is the number 4 November Fog at 3-1 for the reasons you said, but I'm not putting this runner as the top pick because I think the the trip is going to be pretty tough. That first turn comes up quick, and this runner is going to get maybe pinned down on the rail. We saw that in a couple races back against Summer Sunday where November Fog got stuck on the rail, ran into some trouble, and couldn't quite accelerate. Was clearly the best horse. So I don't think we'll see any of 3-1 in the morning line. Expect closer to 7-5, 8-5, especially if others are digging the same type of theory I have on the number 7 Summer Sunday, that the Connections are going to take this one easy and try to win the race, but not to go too crazy. So I'm on the 8 and the 4 is A's, and I'll be fading the favorite number 7 Summer Sunday.
All right, let's move on to race number 11. We've got 3 and up maidens, fillies and mares going 6.5 on the synthetic. Drew, we'll keep it with you.
Yeah, I love this horse in here, number 4, Awesome Treat. Just made a massive early wide move at the 7 furlong distance in the same class level. And I just was caught late. I think is going to be able to do the same thing today, has the increasing buyer speed figures. And I think we're going to see all of that 5-1 morning line with Steve Attard only getting 1 win in the meet so far this year. But this runner looks promising. The workout tab continues to be strong. It's hard to not back this one with the number 4 Awesome Treat at 5-1. And I will use the number 7 Twister Alert for a little bit. Let's say the pace collapses. I think this horse is really going to be the beneficiary of that. Has had time and time again against the pace runs with not enough pace up top to close into. So I'm on the 4 and backup of the 7 in this race.
We have the same top pick. I really do like the 4 Awesome Treat as a possible improver. Has that form close up with a favorite 2 back and looks to have gotten a little bit better since then. I think projects a really good trip. And you made the points as well about how maybe the last time wasn't such an advantageous trip. I did think, though, that the 11 Hard Edge, potentially dangerous from on or near the lead. I wasn't going to cut off my nose to spite my face with the 11, even though I think the morning line price of 2-1 would probably have to be considered short enough. So in race number 11, I've got it 4-11. Drew has it 4-7. And with that, we will move on to our nightcap. We've got $7,500 maiden claimers, 3 and up fillies and mares going 6 on the synth. Drew, how are we going to get paid?
Yeah, I just want to know when are we going to start using our company's funding to start claiming horses up at Woodbine? I like 7,500 is an angle I can approach, and there's a horse I like. So if you give me the thumbs up, we'll drop that tag in and get a owner's license.
I might have to put the thumb in the middle on that one. We'll ask Tommy Massis what he thinks. Who's the horse you like?
This is such a fuzzy form with horses that don't like to pass, and I like the number 3 Nice Company at 20-1. Yeah, and I can't see your face because I'm reading my notes, but I'm sure it's like, what? Wait, really? But finds the right distance today, I think, after going way too fast too early at the 7 furlongs. Then went 5 furlongs and got a bit of a gait trouble and just couldn't keep up sprinting. And the 3 back was way too long. And with Emma Jane getting aboard, I think there's some signal in that. And for a bunch of horses that don't love to pass one another, I don't think you can go too wrong. I'm not saying this is a lock type of bet, but hey, 20-1 or higher, we're going to get our price. And I think might be trending in the right direction. There's glimmers of hope in in these type of lower events, any glimmer of hope, I think, is a good thing to latch onto at a longer
I can't disagree. I mean, you've got a couple of things there. The flow move up, a horse that does look suited to the cutback. I agree that the 6 looks more suitable to this runner than either the 5 or the 7. And at the 20-1 on the morning line, if Nice Company wins, it'll be Julio get the stretch time. I need to go with her.
Yeah. I got a couple other consideration horses. Just rapid fire. The number 4 Classy Gizmo should have the early foot and really is his race to lose. And then the number 5 Joker's Run caught in a few merry-go paces, and I think today this class drop should help. So, and I said Classy Gizmo is his. I meant her early foot. So it's her race to lose. So I'm going to go with 3 A's, the 3, 4, and 5 with a little bit of a price play. I'll probably have some win money in the number 3.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. I was with Classy Gizmo. This was the one I wanted in here. Just very, very natural off what I thought was a move into a hot pace last time, and I think should get a forward trip again in a race where folks, fillies and mares don't necessarily always want to pass, but I will be respecting your Nice Company in there as well and throwing at least a backup in on that one. Drew, one more Woodbine show, and then you'll be also doing some written content this weekend as well, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep the written content doing well, and it's been a good year so far. Trying to keep records. We've had a couple of people ask for like ROIs and this, that, and the other. It's so hard to do and keep track of. We're trying to build content for you all, not keep track of records. But I believe we've been having great weekends over and over again, and just trying to give a different perspective on how to look at the races, how to look at trips, and just get a general guide for some of these late pick sequences over at Woodbine.
All right, good stuff. We'll do it one more time on Sunday. Go to inthemoneypodcast.com to check out all of our podcasts as well as great daily written content. We've got Drew covering Woodbine, Nick Tamaro covering the New York racing, of course, and plenty other fun stuff on there as well. And not just on the weekends either. Check it out every day, and hopefully you'll find something to enjoy. Drew Coatney, I will talk to you soon, my man.
Thank you. See you, Pete.
There are occasions where the pre-show chatter before we go live here on the late week show exceeds the quality of the analysis. Not many, but this might be one as we've gone on tangents about fruit flies and max headroom. But we're really here today to welcome in to talk about last weekend and what's coming up this weekend from our friends at the JRA races. Klaus Ebner, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Good, Pete. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How did you enjoy your podcast hosting debut last weekend? It's not as easy as it looks, is it?
No, but that was quite fun. So thank you for that. And I certainly hope that people found the information valuable that night. The chalk-eating weasel that was Robert Reed scored with Contrail. My horses finished second and third in the race, but that's okay. But it was really good. And we really enjoyed the discussion points, and I think we covered off all the main contenders. And again, I hope people had some winners on this past Saturday.
What a great story that was, though, with Contrail getting to the line first with that explosive late burst. I'm sure people, even if you didn't watch it live, that clip was all over social media. And it's great to, as a racing fan, how does that not make you feel good? And Candace Hare had discussed that scenario and said that's a much more prominent thing that you'll see happen in Japan, where the late start, the last career start, not necessarily one time too long at the fair, but actually a signature performance. And looks like that's what we got last weekend.
Yeah, he showed up. That was obviously his A+ effort. I know the trainer Yahagi, and everyone, just so everyone, in case you didn't know, he was also the trainer of the 2 Breeders' Cup winners as well. So definitely he's the hot hand, if you will, in Japanese racing as a trainer. And he said, he's like, this is the last career race for this guy. So you knew that the screws be tightened and he would have him on his A game. And sure enough, he showed up. And, I think everyone was sort of happy, with the exception of those of us that bet authority who finished second, myself included, who, I was going, I may have a chance to beat Contrail. And sure enough, Contrail got me in the end. So I was, sentimentally, I was like, yeah, it's great to see Contrail, but my pocketbook was not as happy because Contrail won.
You're enough of a racing fan, though, that I imagine it does take some of the sting out of it when you see a story like that is going to get so much play around the world for our friends from over there, especially on the heels of the Breeders' Cup. And now with another unbelievable story potentially coming up this weekend, it just feels like the JRA place in the racing firmament is burning brighter than ever.
Yeah, certainly. And the big thing is that it's weird because usually, for us in North America, December is sort of a downturn, right? We kind of go through Breeders' Cup and we sort of have that lull until maybe, we can say, this the start of the San Anita meet where we have La Brea and a few of the other, grade one stakes there to kind of hype us up for, 2020, the next year. But for the most part, December has a bit of a lull in North America. But over Japan, they have, it's Champions Cup this weekend, as you mentioned, with Sodashi, the Unicorn returning, and then we have the two 2-year-old races happening. So the Phillies and the Colts happening back-to-back weekends, and then we finish things up right on Christmas Day with the Rima Keenan, which is their sort of end-of-year championship in Japan. So definitely not a time to sleep in terms of watching racing for Japan in December.
We'll give you and Robert and Candace a bit of a workout here in December. Let's talk about Sodashi's chances this weekend. Now, I know we don't have PPs yet. We're going to have them. They'll be up on inthemoneypodcast.com. You and the team will be providing excellent content for those looking to stay up late and play the JR races Saturday night. But from this far out, what can you tell us about the chances? How excited should I get Perrin for her favorite horse in training coming back?
So this race is quite interesting to me. It's just because you have horses that are sort of kind of in and out of form. So the field has been drawn, which is good. So we know the field. So it is a field of 16. And the interesting part for me is that, the two horses that everyone was kind of focusing on, at least in my books, that being Sodashi and Cafe Faro, have drawn the inside post and the far outside post. So Sodashi didn't get the best of it with her draw. She drew the one. And, listen, I think Sodashi is a great story. I think everyone loves seeing her run. She's an amazing filly. And, this should – and I use the keyword there, Pete, should hit her right between the eyes in terms of, her dad won this race back in 2006, I believe it was. Again, so sorry about that, but I think it's 2006 or so. And then her mom was a really good grade stakes winner on the dirt. So everything points to Sodashi being, the winner here, in my opinion. But as we've seen before in races with Sodashi, she's her own worst enemy. So she can get very high strung. She can get to the point where she's not very rateable in a race. And if that happens in here, well, then yes, you're looking for, a chance for one of the upsetters, I guess you want to call it, to come in and get her on the wire. But, if she can rate, if she can, work out a trip from the inside with Oshida aboard, I do think, in my opinion, she is the class of the field in terms of quality. But again, there are some others in here, such as the likes of Cafe Faro. Cafe Faro, as you can imagine, is being by American Pharoah, sort of had a bit of a downturn this season for his last couple of races, rather. But, I think the talent's there. Christophe Amir gets back aboard Cafe Faro this start. And there are some others in here. To his inside, you see a horse in the form of Meisho Hario, who's another 4-year-old by Pyro. He's also sort of, if you want to call it the hot horse, he's a horse that, on form alone, it's kind of coming in off, a win last time out in a mile and eighth race, a grade 3 race. And then you have some others that are familiar names in here, such as the form of, Chua Wizard. So Chua Wizard finished, I believe, was runner-up in the Dubai World Cup this past year. So, he was the winner of this event last year. So, he's only 6, so he may still go as a 7-year-old as well next year. But again, there are some horses in there that, do have some quality behind them and can show up to challenge Sodashi on this day.
Now, my gut is that was one too many ifs for the price Sodashi's going to be in terms of wagering. Maybe another one not entirely unlike last week, where you take a shot in one direction with the pocketbook and you just don't feel too bad if the unicorn comes and gets you on the line. Any chance you'll be picking her in the end?
I'll have her on the back end. I cannot be a chalky weasel, Pete. If I really have to, in certain races from Japan this year, I have been a chalky weasels because in my mind, the favorite stood out and towered above the rest. But I think this is one race where, the form cycle for most of these horses coming to this race, there have been a few prep races on the NAR. So those you don't know, they have, obviously JRA racing, which is primarily turf racing. They do have some grade 1s on the dirt, being the February Stakes in February. And then there's also this Champions Cup, which is the race on Saturday, which is, again, a mile and eighth on the dirt. So those are kind of the two main dirt races on the JRA circuit, but there's an entire set of racing on the lower end racing in Japan, which is the NAR circuit, which is all dirt courses. So some of these horses have come into this race off of a race called the JBC Classic, which is Japan Breeders' Cup Classic. So that sort of their version of the Breeders' Cup they have on the NAR circuits for some of their dirt horses. And again, horses like Chill Wizard came out and finished third in that GBC Classic. So I think I'll probably be looking at some of those horses that, sort of has at least some sort of proven dirt form to see if I can upset Sodashi. But again, if the real Sodashi shows up, Pete, I think it's all over for me but the crying. So yeah.
Great stuff. Well, we'll be getting your final answers, as it were, over at inthemoneypodcast.com. You'll drop a bunch of content on Saturday, and PPs will be available for folks that want to do their own work. Been fun chatting with you. We'll recap it next week. We'll look forward to all the good stuff coming up. Of course, Hong Kong's getting ready to take center stage in the Asian racing world. We're going to be providing some special content for the big HKIR night as well, where we should have some Japanese form lines to be examining in that as well. I'm curious to get your thoughts on those as we get closer. But Klaus, great speaking with you. And it looks like the fruit flies didn't bother you too much, or you just showed an incredible poker face during this segment.
Yeah, my eyes are okay, and none flew into my nose or mouth, so we survived it. We survived it, Pete. That's what matters.
And if you don't know who Max Headroom is, I encourage that you go and Google right now. I did like your we can close the show, though, with your Max Headroom impression.
Racing.
Good stuff, Klaus. We'll be talking soon.
All right. Take care, Pete.
That's going to do it for this edition of the show. I'd like to thank our guests. I'll go in order, starting with Steven Crist. Always such a pleasure to get him on these airwaves. Nobody does a better job than Steven Crist when it comes to analyzing racing around the country, but particularly in his own beloved New York circuit. So always tickled to have him on. Brian Nadeau, Ashley Mailloux, talking about Gulfstream and the Claiming Crown on Saturday. Going to get to hang out with them this weekend. Really looking forward to that. Drew Coatney for his penultimate appearance talking about Woodbine in the 2021 calendar year. Always good to chat with him about something other than TPS reports. And the late pick 4 at Woodbine certainly fits that bill. Last but not least, we had Klaus Ebner from the JRA races Saturday night. The fruit flies left him alone. God bless, I was going to say God bless America, but in this case, I guess it's God bless Canada. Terrific to have him on. Really appreciated his extra coverage of the Japan Cup last weekend. And as far as Perrin is concerned, most anticipated JRA race of the year, Saturday night, Ken Sadashi, the unicorn, as she called her, get it done on dirt and go to the Saudi Cup. We will see what happens on Saturday night. Hopefully the fairy tale will continue for that one and for Perrin. This show has been a production of In the Money Media. Got to thank producer AJ for sitting in and getting the job done today while producer Craig is running around like a chicken with his head cut off. But, we lose nothing with AJ. Always fantastic to have him on the team. Been a major contributor this year, and we really appreciate him. Who else? Our founding partners. How about them? We've got the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, trfinc.org/players. You can give to them over there. We've had a very generous year of donations, but let's push it over the top in these last few months, especially if you want either our whiskey, the rye finished in apple brandy barrels, or this new promotion. It's not going to be lasting long. $120 donation gets you the Woodford Reserve bottle signed by Graham Motion and John Velasquez while supplies last on that one, folks. So do not snooze. trfinc.org/players. 10 Strike Racing will be rooting for the purple and black this weekend and every weekend. So great having them on the team from minute one here on the In the Money Media Network. Most of all, I would like to thank all of you, the listeners, for making these shows so much fun to do. Once again, thank you from In the Money Media. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatel. May you win all your photos.